Kate Mila Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. And I am, well, first of all, thank you very much for subscribing, or the subscribing that you're going to do right now. Subscribe. And thank you for being here to watch this. I appreciate everybody who's returning. I'm delighted that if you're new, welcome, that you found me here. This video today was inspired by a couple of different topics that I've been covering. One of them is an upcoming book that I won't spoil the surprise by telling you about, but this individual's name came up. And also, peripherally, in the discussion of Gnosticism, this guy's name came up. And I thought, well, you know, that's kind of a sign. And so I pay attention to those little synchronicities. And I thought today we would talk about John Mack, Dr. John Mack. And darn it, I have a couple of his books, but they're downstairs and I'm not going to go down and get them. You'll just have to look them up in the, I guess that, what would they be? Paranormal UFO, alien abduction section of Amazon. So John Mack was born October 4th, 1929 in New York City from a family of German Jewish extraction. His father was a professor at CUNY. His mother died when he was a baby. I did not find what happened to her. His father remarried a woman named Ruth Mack, who was a big shot economist, which, given the time period, you know, early 30s, that's not all that usual. He had a half-sister, I suppose. Ruth had his half-sister, so younger, whose name is Mary Lee Ingbar, and she became a pioneer of computer analysis, a professor at Dartmouth and at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. So you might say they were kind of a smart family. His father, and keep in mind, you know, they're Jewish. His father used to read the Bible to them every day as a cultural and literary experience, not because of any particular religious affinity for it. So in 1947, John Mack graduated from the Horace Mann Lincoln School. And it sounded familiar, so I did a little detour and looked it up. It began in 1887 as an experimental school within the Columbia University's Teachers College. It is an Ivy League prep school in the Bronx. It became a boys' school by the 40s. It did some splitting up of genders and getting back together and splitting up and getting together. They have a nursery school that's in Manhattan, and then the rest of it all the way through high school is in the Bronx. Horace Mann was instrumental in establishing public education in the United States. It's an interesting school. Their curriculum is rigorous. You can Google it. It's rigorous. One of the things that they require is community service in order to graduate, and not just something that you can pay lip service to. You have to really do something. It was voted the best private school from kindergarten through 12th grade in the United States in 2017. By 2025, the high school was down to number 5. Some famous people who went there, I read the whole list. And a lot of them, you kind of recognize their names, but kind of boring, you know, what they did. But the ones that jumped out at me, Bill Barr, which is interesting because his father taught at the Dalton School. So a little bit of rivalry there. Bill Barr, Roy Cohn, Trump's former lawyer. Somebody called Valentine, excuse me, I'm choking on my own spit. Valentine Davies graduated in 1923. This is the person who wrote the book that the movie was based on, The Miracle on 34th Street. Barry Scheck, who was a lawyer in the OJ case and later formed, probably in Atonement, created the Innocence Project. In 1951, John Mack graduated from Oberlin with a Phi Beta Kappa. And Oberlin is a very interesting school. It's kind of an unconventional, a little bit alternative university, college, very creative, very artsy. In 1955, he graduated from Harvard Medical School cum laude, which is with honors. He trained in psychiatry. I guess that's where he did his residency at Massachusetts General. In 1959, he got conscripted by the Air Force and ended up being a medic in Japan. Then he went back to Massachusetts, to the Massachusetts Mental Health Center and the Boston Psychoanalytic Society and Institute, and became a fixture there. He became a certified child and adult psychoanalysis and psychotherapy expert. He got certified. In 1964, he began teaching at Harvard Medical School, and in 72, he became a full professor. In 77, he became the chair of the executive committee of the psychiatric department at Harvard Medical School, and he remained in that position until his death. He published voluminously more than 150 articles in professional journals. He wrote 11 books, one of which we'll talk about in a minute. He became the head of the Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He did quite a bit of publishing on heroin addiction. His dominant area of study was the exploration of how one's perception of the world affect one's relationships. So maybe renamed worldview. How does your worldview affect your relationships? And he explored this. He studied this with his patients through their dreams, their nightmares, and cases of teen self-harm. So I told you we'd talk about one of his books. Well, in 1977, he was doing this larger study about how I would not only worldview, but your perception of yourself. And he studied T.E. Lawrence, who was Lawrence of Arabia, who's a real guy, T.E. Lawrence. And he won the Pulitzer Prize for the book that he wrote. It's called A Prince of Our Disorder, The Life of T.E. Lawrence. In 1980, he researched the root causes of the Cold War and did many interviews in order to do this research, including with such people as Jimmy Carter, Edward Teller. He formed a group, he was a co-founder with Carl Sagan and Helen Caldecott, who was, I believe, Australian, a doctor. They formed a group called Physicians for Social Responsibility and Ethical Behavior. They were anti-nuclear activists. In 1985, their group won the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize went to Sagan, to John Mack, to Caldecott, and to 700 plus people who engaged in an act of civil disobedience by infringing on the Nevada test site, walking onto the forbidden property in the summer of 1986. So this man won the Pulitzer Prize and the Nobel Prize. Full professor at Harvard Medical School. Not too shabby. And I've seen him in videos, and he just really struck me as an enormous well of compassion for people. I think if you see him and you listen to him talk, you're struck. I was struck just by his demeanor. What a really kind person he was. So in 1990, he was approached by some colleagues, and they wanted help with their patients. They had people coming to them and telling them these really weird stories and thinking, oh my God, I'm going crazy. I'm going to a psychiatrist. This is how he got involved in this topic. These people were claiming that they had been abducted by UFOs. And this put him on a decades plus study of recurrent alien encounter experiences. So there was a guy called R. Leo Sprinkle, who in the 60s was one of the very few academics who was willing to publicly talk about this and study it openly. Mack was the most esteemed person in academia who was willing to take it seriously and treat it from like a scientific point of view. So when they first came to him, he there's a book about this. It's called The Believer, and I covered it a few years ago. At first, he suspected, these people are mentally ill. There is something really wrong. I mean, they're claiming that they're being taken out of their beds and floated through walls in the middle of the night. So he put them through rigorous panel of a barrage of tests to see, like, what is it that's wrong with them? And he came out the other side. He could find no pathology. The only thing unusual about them were these stories. So he had a good friend called Thomas Kuhn, who was a historian and a philosopher of science. And Kuhn encouraged Mack, ignore the prevailing materialist, dualist analysis of conventional science. Just collect the data. Don't extrapolate right now. Just collect the data and arm yourself with facts. And so he did. He set up a serious scientific study. He recognized that almost everything told to him was through the experience that affected their worldview. Everything, this event that they all felt that they had experienced affected their worldview. And one of the things that it also did, seemingly, measurably, was increase their spirituality, their interest in spirituality, and also, which is interesting, created in them something that didn't exist before, which was a deep, serious concern for the well-being of the environment. So Mack was a guarded researcher. He was not jumping to conclusions. He wasn't going whole hog into the embracing of these stories, but he was fair-minded. He wasn't going to brush somebody off. It's really poor science to say, this is not true because I don't understand it. Or if I don't understand something, it's wrong and I'm going to ignore it. And that's bad science. That's the sign of a poor scientist. If you're a good scientist, you will collect data, you will study, you will look for facts and then create a hypothesis. But if you're dismissing things in a knee-jerk way based on your held beliefs at the moment, that's not good science. So he was more fair-minded than that. He took their stories at face value. He argued against that. He said, I don't take them on face value. I take them seriously. He says, I just have no way to account for them. So I'm recording what they say. I'm taking as much data, as many facts. I'm documenting what they're telling me. I have no explanation for it. Nevertheless, this is their experience. He didn't just medicate them and ignore it. In 1996, he was interviewed or on PBS, and this is a quote. He said, there are aspects of this which I believe were justified in taking quite literally, which that was a big thing to say. He said, UFOs are observed. They're filmed on camera. And at the same time that people are having these abduction experiences, they're filmed on camera and they're observed by other people. It's both literally something physical happening to some degree, but it's also some kind of psychological, spiritual experience that's occurring and originating perhaps in another dimension, end quote. So he said this on television. You can imagine. Then he went on BBC and he said, I would never say, yes, there are aliens taking people, but I would say that there is a compelling, powerful phenomenon here that I can't account for in any other way. That's mysterious. Yet I can't know what it is, but it seems to me that it invites a deeper inquiry. That's a true scientist. That's the attitude you have to have. I hear this is happening. I'm receiving factual data that shows me that it's happening to some extent. I don't know what it is. It's still a mystery, but we need to pay attention to it. So Mack noted that there's a worldwide history of visionary experiences, and especially pre-industrially. So Native American vision quests he used as an example. He says it's only in recent Western culture that this sort of thing is regarded as a pathology. In many cultures, in many times, or globally, this is considered an accepted part of our reality. Aboriginal people in Australia. So he wondered, were abduction accounts some kind of part of this tradition of visionary encounters? Is it all 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, in other words? So his suggestion was that these experiences may be more transcendent than physical. Not to say they're not physical, but they're also something else, that they're some sort of spiritual transformation. And this set him apart from other investigators who were also investigating abduction stories, like Bud Hopkins, for example, who maintained completely, oh, these are just physical things from someplace else. So Mack evolved his research into a consideration of some sort of expanded notion of reality beyond Western materialist paradigms. This is very much like what Philip K. Dick tried to talk about. In 1999, he wrote a book called Passport to the Cosmos. This is a physical treatise on spirituality and modern worldviews, and he dedicated the book to the abductees. In November of 94, he went to Ruwa, Zimbabwe. And you can find this on YouTube. And it is an absolutely mind-blowing story. I covered this for Halloween a few years ago. You can go back, I'm pretty sure, and find it in my old videos. He went to this school called the Ariel School, A-R-I-E-L school in Zimbabwe. And this was a big school, kind of a little bit out of town. There were empty fields around it to a certain extent. The teachers were having a teachers' conference. All the teachers were in one big room conferring with each other. Meanwhile, the kids were running amok on the playground, and there were a few older kids supposed to watch them, and I think there was one teacher, possibly one adult, also keeping an eye on them. When, long story short, several UFOs appeared in the sky, flew around, landed in the field outside the school fences. A handful of children ran towards it. I think 3 little girls managed to get themselves over the fence and into the field. And they actually had, to varying degrees, they had an interaction with the inhabitants of these UFOs. And the story that they told was remarkable. And they all told something fairly similar. And the story that all the other children who saw, consistent. And the teachers, like the kids, they saw this UFO landed. They ran in, teacher. And the teachers were like, don't bother us. We're in the middle of something. But a couple of the teachers did see. And they also had weird law enforcement interactions and mental health things after that. Mack went to interview the children as soon as he could after hearing about the incident. Some of his interviews are on film on YouTube. It's called the Ariel, A-R-I-E-L phenomenon. You can type in Zimbabwe school children UFO, and you should be able to find it. I had to really hunt because I didn't know the name of the school. I heard about the incident, read it somewhere, couldn't find where it was, and finally narrowed it down, and it is on YouTube. So I went to the school to interview the children who had experienced talking to the ETs or looking at the UFOs. And it was really interesting. The children all said something very similar, that they were told that humanity was at a crossroads and that we had to be more responsible for the environment or we would suffer the repercussions, that it was becoming too late. And these beings wanted this message of concern for Gaia to go to the younger generation and impress upon them how important it was. And the kids, they separated the children and the children drew pictures of what they'd seen. Remarkable. So in 1994, it was the first time, right after this, that Harvard, in its history, subjected a tenured professor to a confidential review of his clinical work. Namely, they went after, in private, Mack reviewed all of his cases of abductees to see, did he follow protocol? Did he do the right things? Did he treat them in the correct way? Was he professional? Was he ethical? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The committee said to communicate in any way whatsoever to a person who has reported a close encounter with an extraterrestrial life form, that this experience might well have been real, is professionally irresponsible. So that's why they investigated him. When the fact of this ongoing investigation was no longer secret, got leaked, it was challenged by the academic community about the validity of investigating a tenured professor who was not suspected of ethics violations, not suspected of any kind of professional or otherwise misconduct, simply challenging conventional belief systems. After 14 months, the dean came out and said, well, we have reaffirmed that Dr. Mack's academic freedom to study what he wishes and to state his opinions without impediment been reaffirmed. And they gave him a slap on the wrist for, I forget, it was some silly technicality. It wasn't something important. But as a result, this got the attention of a lot of people. Harvard really fell under heavy criticism for trying to silence intellectual investigation. And as a result, Lawrence Rockefeller, yes, that family, funded Mack's nonprofit organization that he created. Rockefeller gave him $250,000 a year for 4 years to study all this stuff. September 27th, 2004, he was in London to do a lecture at the T.E. Lawrence Society dinner that they had, their annual thing. And he got hit by a car and killed in the street, hit by a drunk driver. This has always been kind of speculated, but he was hit by a drunk driver and killed. The drunk driver didn't leave. They knew who it was, and he was arrested. Mack's family requested clemency for this driver. Enough damage has already been done. You don't need to ruin this person's life because of a terrible decision that he made that caused an accident. And so instead of charging him with, negligent homicide or manslaughter or whatever the charges would be, it's in England, he was given 6 months and a suspended license for like a really long time. So in conclusion, Mack had extensive legacy of written work, just extensive. But I think he gave the world several different really significant gifts. The book he wrote on T.E. Lawrence, that was seminal work. It was really incredible work. It's huge. The Nobel work, the work that they did against nuclear power, the proliferation of it, the danger of it, the threat to peace, they were peace activists. And And they base their political position on ethics, moral ethics. That won him a Nobel Prize. And then his legacy that he left of being willing to entertain from a place of scientific curiosity an idea that is really challenging to conventional understanding of our reality. And as a result, and the reason why I wanted to bring him up was he really gave permission for people in academia to start questioning more openly, what is our reality really? What are these things that people are experiencing? And as a result, well, not only as a result of Mack, but hand in hand, we have people like Dr. Diane Pasulka, who did American Cosmos, and I forget the name of her other book. It's like Interviews or Communication. I can't remember. We did cover it. She started out studying. She's professor of religion in University of North Carolina in Greensboro, I think. She started studying Marian apparitions. Mary, the Blessed Virgin, whatever there. Started studying her, Fatima, Lourdes, Medjugorje, and Guadalupe. And there was a thing in New Mexico, I forget the name of it. And questioning, like, what is it that's being experienced? And the similarities between those sorts of experiences and other kinds of visions, fairies, UFOs, all this stuff put together. Crossed paths at a conference with Jacques Vallée, and they found that they were actually looking at a very similar situation from two different directions, and so they've worked together. I strongly recommend her books. Really interesting. I strongly recommend the work of Dr. John Mack, at least about alien abductions. The I think Kidnapped is one of them, or Abducted is one of them. And then the book about him is called Believer, True Believer. And they're really good books. Very, very interesting. But he opened some doors to intellectual inquiry and curiosity, and can't find fault with that. So that's all I have. I just thought he was an interesting person to talk about, and I hope you'll look more into him. And in the meantime, Slancha.